whether you wanted to or not, arguably the most famous transgender woman on planet Earth. How has the whole process been for you?
Well, you know, I've been able to live my life authentically for the last 2.5 years. Probably been the most rewarding 2.5 years of my life. It's also been probably the most challenging 2.5 years of my life. I had never met anybody else, although I was a trans person. I never met anybody else that was trans until I came out. So I had a lot to learn about the community. And it's been a very interesting ride. You know, just because I went through a transition, I didn't change. You know, I'm still the same person I was before in so many ways, but I'm just so much more comfortable with myself today. All of a sudden become trans. This is something that you live with your entire life. As a young child, I suffered with identity issues. Although back then in the 50s and 60s, I've been around a long time, you just kept your mouth shut about it. Back in the 80s, I thought for sure I couldn't take it any longer, and that I spent 6 years of my life actually thinking I was going to transition by the age of, you know, before I turned the age of 40. And it was a really, really difficult time for me. It was probably the lowest I've ever been. And I got to 39 and I just couldn't go any farther. You know, I say now, it's just, it wasn't time.
How do you feel about Bruce now when you look back? That former persona you had?
I'm very proud of him. I liked Bruce. He was a good person. It wasn't all of me. There was so much more to me than that. But I remember, you know, I got involved in sports, and it was my way to kind of divert myself from who I was and never knowing how far I would go with it. But, you know, in life, you kind of look back on things. And I look back on that performance and that life that I was living at the time, and I was totally obsessed with winning, totally obsessed with proving myself. I trained 6 to 8 hours a day. I drove myself so hard. I got in the competitions, and my head worked. It was more important for me to win. Why? Because when I was growing up, I was, a dyslexic kid, suffered from low self-esteem, that I thought everybody else was smarter than me, and those words just didn't come up off the piece of paper like everybody else. And also, I wouldn't tell anybody, but I also had identity issues and gender issues, and I had all these things going with me. And I think because of that, I became so obsessed with trying to prove myself as a man, as a person, and legitimize myself to myself, that one of the reasons I was standing up there that day is because of all these other things that were going on in my head, and I had to prove myself. I remember the next morning waking up, and I didn't have a stitch of clothes on. It was in the bathroom, and the medal was sitting there on the counter. And I picked it up and I put it on, and I looked in the mirror and I said, oh my God, what do I do now? You know, what's my next distraction going to be? And fortunately I found, you know, I got into business and TV and family and all those other things. So I found other distractions from myself about who I was.
You certainly...
my kids, especially Kendall and Kylie, who I spend a lot of time with, and the Jenner side I spend a lot of time with, have been nothing but supportive, and from that standpoint, it's been great. And so, but the Kardashian side, honestly, I really don't talk to them very often, and so I just kind of deal with that. Fortunately, I have a lot of children.